big turnout this afternoon. Thank you for making time. And may I have your help to rename yourself in this format, name_organization, so that during the Q&A, it is easier for us to identify where you come from. Okay, please take some time to rename yourself if possible, your name_the organization. We're going to have Q&A at the end, so at any time through the webinar, please feel free to put in your questions. And we'll take them all at the end. And this session will be recorded. There is also live captioning enabled, so please do feel free to click on the captions and to show captions if you need them. Thank you for coming on time. So let's wait a little while. Okay, we have people streaming in. Just give us a moment. And you can put your questions into the Q&A. Where can you go to rename? I think there is a 3-dot function beside your name. Might not be visible if you are joining from a mobile phone, I think. So if everyone can help me to look at your device, if there is a 3-dot, yeah, and then I think if you choose that option, it will show you if you could rename yourself. Okay. All right, let's wait a little while. We are about 50%. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Okay, let's wait a little while. Okay, if you have co-workers or team members who did not register via our end, please feel free to send the Zoom link that you have with them. Yeah, so they can actually click on the Zoom link and also join this session. All right, and we are really looking forward to your team members to join if they are involved in any IT or transformation projects and are in charge of the IT function. Okay. Looks like we may not be able to have the renaming function. Yeah, I don't see the names with the organization. Okay, maybe that's not available. Okay, no problem. Okay. Yeah, we have disabled the chat function for this webinar. So you can type any questions in the Q&A box. Okay. All right, let's give ourselves another minute. People are still streaming in. Okay, yeah, I've got the feedback that it's not able to rename on the desktop Zoom. Sure, no problem. So maybe later, if you are typing in your questions, you may want to just indicate which organization you're from. All right, yeah, so we have some context and able to better answer that question. All right, no problem at all. Okay. Okay, we have more people streaming in. We're really excited for this session because it's a non-profit for the entire non-profit sector. So not only for our social service agencies, but also care organizations as well as charities. Yeah, so we are doing this together for the entire non-profit sector. Let's wait a little while for people to stream in. If you have questions, please type into the Q&A function. Thanks for joining this afternoon. I hope you had your lunch, and it's going to be an exciting 1 hour ahead as we talk about this topic that's very close to our hearts, the DAI. Okay, let's wait a little while. People are still coming in. Okay, I see some of you may have a question. I see a hand raised, so maybe you want to type your question into the chat, the Q&A function. Sorry, yeah. Okay, we will be recording this session, and the recording will be made available at a later date. We will be uploading to YouTube and sharing the link. Yeah, so if you specifically will require the recording, do let us know, and we'll take a note on that. And the materials that we share today will also be made available to all the participants on next Monday. So we'll send out the materials so you can take a look at it. Yeah, there's a lot of information is going to be shared today. So yeah, we will share the materials next Monday. Okay, let's see. Okay, I think let's start now. Our attendees coming in has kind of trickled off a little bit. Okay, let's start. Okay, can I have the next slide, please? Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My partners from the non-profit sector, specifically from the social service agencies, Care Organizations, as well as charities. My name is Tracy, and I am from the sectoral digital transformation team. And today we are really excited to share this DAI with everyone. We did the first exercise in 2021 when we are still in the pandemic. And within the last 2 years, there's been so much digitalization that has gone on. So much effort that's been put in. And I think this is really a good time for us to do another check on how we have done, where we are in terms of digital maturity, and how we can move on from here. And so if you had received multiple reminders from us to join this webinar and to take part in the survey, it is because we are really passionate to make sure that we can help you to be enabled through digitalization. Today's program, we will be covering this part mainly on what we have done in the past in 2021. That's going to be some context for some of the organizations who is new to DAI. And then our consultants will bring us through the details on what to expect in the 2023 DAI study and how you can do that survey when it's been triggered to you next week, and what you can expect after participating in this exercise. And we'll have a big bulk of the time at the end of the session, towards the end, to do Q&A. So along the session, if you have questions, do feel free to put it there, and we'll try to address them at the end. Okay, right now, I'm going to pass the time to my director, Eileen. She's going to give us the welcome note. Eileen, please.
Oh, hi, everyone. Okay, right. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Firstly, thank you for taking the time. I know everybody's busy, and as we were sending out the emails and the EDMs and calls and reminders, I think there were quite a few people who told us that it's clashing with their meetings and so on. But many of you said you will try your best, so I'm really glad to see all of you today. And shout out especially to our partners. I believe in the room we have our MOH, AIC, NCCY friends as well, because we are doing this together. I think for the first time we really, I mean the last one in 2021, I think we had our AIC friends as well. But this year we were a little bit more coordinated, I think. So we're pulling everybody together. So hi to all our partners. Okay, then before I even start saying anything, really substantial, I'd like to thank the team, because I think my team has really worked very hard, especially Tracy. I think she spent many nights and weekends over the last month working very hard with BCG, our consultants in this journey. So I just want to thank them. Okay, now coming into this DAI specifically. Okay, some of you on the I find this very interesting because when I'm looking at my iPad, I'm only looking at myself. I wish I could be seeing all of you. But I believe that I know quite a few of you in the room, and quite a few of you might have had some interactions with me over the years. So I thought to just give me a minute to kind of say who I am and where I came from. So for those of you who I don't know, I look forward to getting to know you. Basically, I was in MSF for 26 years or so. Pretty much most of the time, I was doing probation work, dealing with young offenders. And along the way, we did quite a lot of what we call ops tech transformation. So I was leading the probation space for a while, and I did push, or rather encourage or nudge my people in the team to really transform the way we work using technology. And then thereafter, I went into a central space in the rehab and protection group to do more tech transformation. So today in NCSS, it's very exciting for me because now it's grown even bigger, right? It's grown into the sector space. So I am really excited. It has been a good 5 months. Lots to learn, still to learn, and plenty to do. So I am looking forward to a very exciting journey with all of you. And I know that, when you do tech, right, it's really challenging. I would say, especially in the social service sector, because there's always this kind of fine balance between what we call high tech, high touch, right? And there's always that tension. So the change management for our people, I think, is part of the big battle to overcome, right? And it can be done because in my time in MSF, I think in the last decade we started the journey more than a decade ago, and things, of course, in the beginning was always difficult, but once we got the momentum going, right, it was actually much better, and people realized that it's a new way of working, and they do start to see the benefits of it. There will always be some level of dissatisfaction, some measure of complaints, but by and large, people see that it is good that we are progressing, and technology has helped them. And with the clients that we see, I think it has also helped them to maybe do some self-service, even our volunteers, right? Do a bit of self-service and to get some autonomy over their journey. I think technology has also helped that. Aside from that, of course, the fact that we can work better and faster is also very helpful for our clients and the needs that we need to deal with for them, right? So with this experience, I come to NCSS and I feel that we need to walk this journey together, all of us. Okay, so this DAI that we are talking about, some of us might know it as Digital Maturity Index. So in government, we also have to do this so-called DAI here, but actually in government, we call it DMI. And actually, we do it every year. Okay? And I must say that filling up this survey, right, is long and tedious. And that's why we're having this webinar. I believe in 2021, Tracy tells me there was no webinar, right? So when I came, I said, oh, we're going to do this DAI. I said, it's not easy to do. So let's have a webinar. Let's help our agencies, right, to be able to fill this survey and do it properly and do it right. So that's why we thought this 1 hour today, just to give some insight, some guidance, some idea of what the framework is, where we're trying to get to, and even show you some sample questions to see how to help you to really make good use of your time that you spend doing the survey and able to really be able to give sharp answers, I would say, and accurate answers, which is really critical, right? So this webinar, right, aside from that, right, is also to let you know that when we fill up such surveys, right, it is important to remember or to know or to realize the kind of technologies that we have and have been using. Because a lot of times we roll out stuff and we use it and it becomes day to day, and soon we kind of put it at the back of our minds. So when a survey like that comes up, right, it's actually useful for us to take time to reflect and think about, hey, actually we have this technology, it's helped us. We have this one, okay, it's been a bit painful, but overall, it's still helpful. Oh, we have these challenges with our people and the technology. So it's good to take some time to reflect on it. So this webinar is also a start to just sort of like trigger everybody start thinking along those lines, so that when we send out the survey link next week and you actually open it and start doing it, right, all the technology stuff that you have in your organization is kind of in your mind. So as you tackle the questions, you will have that at the back of your mind. Because if you don't, right, what will happen is that you will just look at the questions and it will become like a big blur, and then it's just like, oh, just fill out any other survey, which is not really not what we want now, because the results for us, for you, is actually very important. In the last 2-3 years, COVID, right, there was a lot done in the space of tech. I mean, NCSS has done a lot to support the technology ambitions that the agencies have, right? And Tracy and my team at SDT have worked very, very hard over 2-3 years. And so now is really a good time to take a look at where we are at, where the sector is at, but actually more importantly is where each agency is at. This time round, once the survey is done and we get the results, right, we do want to come to you individually, sit with you and say, okay, this is what it looks like, right? Like where you're at. And then talk with you about where else you want to go, or what's next. And then that's where we can sort of put in place some next moves in a more strategic and systematic manner. Because the last thing we want is to pump in resources. And when I say resources, it's not just about money, right? A lot of times it's about manpower, it's about effort, it's about the sweat, the blood, and the pain. So we want to make sure all these resources really reap us the right benefits. And the benefit is for who at the end of the day, right? It's actually for our clients. I mean, those of us social service for the longest time will know that the client is at the center of it all. So all these things we're trying to do, they're just enablers for our clients. But actually, aside from clients, is also our staff, our teammates. Because if our teammates are struggling and suffering because of the workload and because of the drudgery of a lot of admin and stuff like that, they just cannot be of good service to the clients, which is at the end of the day who we want to serve, right? So I do look forward to everybody taking the time to do this survey, right? I think it would take about 45 minutes to an hour to complete the survey properly. And I know that's a long time, especially when you're really busy, but please set aside the time, and please think about the technology that you've already adopted in your system, in your space, in your services for the last 2 to 3 years. And then from there, give a response to the questions. That will be very, very helpful. Okay, the other point I wanted to make was about who should do the survey. So I believe in 2021, only one person was doing the survey from each agency. But this year, I told the team that we must have more than one. In government, actually, we have quite a number of people from each government agency to fill out the DMI every year. And they come from across middle and senior management teams. I would encourage for you to please look around your organization and consider who would be best placed to fill up this survey. So not just yourselves, the heads of departments or the heads of the agency, but really who else? And it's not only the tech people also. It could well be the operations people, the heads of services, the heads of programs. These are the people who are also going to be able to give insight, right? So that at the end of the day, the result that comes is holistic for your agency. It's not just one person's perspective. Because when it's just one person's perspective, it gets a little bit dangerous. So it would be good really to see a holistic picture, right? From different parts of your management team, if I might call it that. Okay, so at the end of the day, I think where we're trying to go for SDT and NCSS, where we want to go is transformation for the agencies, transformation for the sector. So we are not just thinking about digitization, which is like, oh, going paperless, or not just about digitalization, which is like, oh, I have a case management system, I have a VMS, I have a DMS. It's not just about having individual systems also. At the end of the day, we want to look towards or have our agencies able to change the way they work, change the way they serve, and the service users to have a different experience because technology or digitalization has enabled that, right? So that's the kind of transformation journey that we hope to have. All right, so I've said so many things. I'm going to leave it to our consultants to take you through. There's a Q&A right at the end, but I know that some of you are in a rush. So you might have to leave at maybe 3, but I would encourage you to please stay to the end of the sharing at least. And if you have to run off and you don't have a chance to ask the questions, what you could also do is to write to us. If you have some specific questions, it's okay, you can write to us. We'll be happy to answer you as well. Okay, so feel free to ask as many questions as you want, and I'll see you all later again at the Q&A. Thank you. Okay, Seng-Chi, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Eileen. So hi everyone, thanks a lot for taking the time to join us today. I'm Seng-Chi, I'm the principal in the Boston Consulting Group, and I do a range of work supporting public sector, supporting private sector with digital innovation, digital transformation, and we've had the privilege of supporting NCSS through this journey, as well as MOH, AIC, MCCY on this important topic to think about how to accelerate digitalization going forward. And today I'm joined with my colleague, Rachel, who will also be sharing some of the details of this year's survey, right? So that you have a better understanding of what you'll be receiving next week, right? And how best to actually approach this and fill this up. So if we go to the next page, so digitalization or digital transformation, like what Eileen mentioned, really is something that's really changing the game, not just in the private sector, where you see a lot of new players coming up, right? New business models, but also for the social and non-profit sector. I think traditionally people look at this as IT functions, right? Digital like back-end functions, but now you actually see transformative potential to change how you interface and support your service users, right? Not just in terms of deploying simple siloed solutions, right? But really achieving better outcomes, right? Despite of the constraints we have, because we know that manpower is tight, we know that resources are tight. How do we do more with less while still maintaining or improving service outcomes? I think is important, and digitalization or digital transformation is a key enabler for that. So we at BCG developed a tool, right, called the Digital Acceleration Index. This is a tool that we've developed globally and we've deployed with multiple private sector players, right, over the course of the last 6-7 years or so, about 18,000 companies in our database here. And it's really a holistic framework that aims to capture the different elements of digitalization. So what you see here on the left is basically 6 building blocks. The top layer is the why, your strategy. Why do you want to digitalize, right? The middle layer is your what. So what do you digitalize? Different functions, different front end, back end, right, functions. And the bottom is the how. The people, ways of working, data, technology tools you do, as well as collaboration. And so we aim to try and really get a good understanding of these different building blocks or ingredients that are critical or needed for you to actually advance in your digital journey, right? And what you see here in the survey aims to do is then to get a sense of where you are across 4 maturity stages, which then gets aggregated into what we call a DAI score, that then tells you where you are in terms of being a starter, literate, performer, or leader. And just to give you a bit more granularity, while we have these 6 building blocks, these are also decomposed into 33 dimensions. So, right, for each of these, for example, strategy, it can be decomposed and you think about different facets of your strategy. Vision, ambition, roadmap. Same thing for the functions that you do, right? The different elements, whether it is outreach and marketing, whether it's service delivery, procurement, etc. Same for the different enablers, right, around people, data, technology, and ecosystem. And so what we try to do, like Eileen mentioned, we recognize it's a long survey. We recognize it is time-intensive and effort-intensive to complete it, but to really get an understanding of where each of your organizations are on each of these dimensions. And when we then aggregate it together, we get a better understanding of where the sector is to be able to guide interventions and guide more targeted interventions to support you on this digital journey. Now, at a very high level, if we think back to 2021, so in 2021, we did this DAI survey for the social service sector. We saw 227 SSAs that completed this, right? There's about 44% response rate, and we also had survey insights supplemented with interviews. So you remember the heat map we saw earlier. What we see, or what we saw in 2021, was that the social service sector was between digital starter and digital literate. That's on the cusp, right? You see a score of 26. But like we said, it's not just about one score. When we actually decompose it across the different dimensions, right, what we saw was quite interesting, where strategy is the highest scoring building block, right? This is what we expect, because you have to have a digital strategy to be set out first before you start putting things in place. However, when you look at the heat map, right, the darker red is less mature, the oranges are slightly more mature. Of course, there's yellows and greens, but given the state of where we are, oranges on the upper end, right? So strategies ahead, right? Followed by people, ways of working in data and tech, right? Those are the inputs, right? How do we actually train our people, thinking about virtual teaming, right? Thinking about adopting specific discrete technologies. But where the challenge is for SSA is really about operationalizing some of this, right? If you notice the middle layer, the digitized core functions and activities, whether it's front end, whether it's back end, tend to be less mature. And this is what we see also in the private sector when we do this, where people actually have a strategy, they've done discrete things, but really transformation is not just about adopting technologies. It's about changing ways of working, changing processes as well, to make sure that these technologies are actually achieving the better outcome that we have, right? So this is where we are. And at a high level, when we think about it, we are, social service sectors in line with Singapore SMEs. But when we think about going forward, right, the difference some of you asked about the IMDA survey as well as the NCSS survey is that the IMDA survey is broad-based. We've got 2,500 companies or organizations, right? That only asks about the current state, right? Because it's meant as a pulse check, right? To say, okay, where are we? Where is the Singapore economy on these dimensions, right? What we aim to do with this deep dive is to also understand your ambitions. Where do you want to be, right? So we have a current state, we have a target state, and then we can then identify what kind of interventions and how do we actually bridge this target state, right? What kind of support structures, mechanisms, right, do we need to be able to support all of you in this journey, whether it's around developing strategy, whether it's around upskilling people, whether it's around developing certain initiatives or translating some of this, or even sector connectivity. And so we recognize that some of you are invited and do the IMDA survey. In this case, this is more comprehensive. But what we have also tried to do, and we discussed with IMDA, is that if you do complete this, right, survey, then you won't have to do the 2024 one, which is coming out in January, so that it reduces the burden and time effort for you. So if you just complete this 2023 NCSS DAI survey, given the short time frame, this will be used for 2024, so you only complete it once. Now, going back to 2021, we see that we saw earlier digital starter, digital literate, right, score of 26, right, ambitions to be a digital performer, a score of 65. And if you notice across all the dimensions, it's a lot higher. You see all yellows, greens, right? And this is stuff that, which means that you actually have to come quite far. And what we want to do this year, go to the next slide, is to really get an assessment of saying, okay, 2021, we were here, right? 2020, and then we have a certain target. Where are we today? How have we evolved? And how has the digital maturity evolved over the last 2 years or so, right? Which dimensions have grown more? Which dimensions have grown less? Right, and that will then allow us to get a sense of why, and we also keen to hear from you why, because then we can then get a sense of, okay, if this is the dimensions have grown faster, like, can we replicate some of this? And if these dimensions have not grown as fast, the question is why, and can we do something about it? Right, so that's in a nutshell what we are aiming to do this year with the study, right? And I'll hand it over to Rachel, my colleague, who can share a bit more the details of the 2023 study.
Thanks, Sing-Chin. So this next part of the webinar will be covering details about this year's survey, such as the differences between the 2021 DAI as well as the 2023 DAI, as well as what each of you can expect from the survey experience. So this is a quick snapshot of how we have expanded the DAI survey this year to include the broader non-profit sector. While the 2021 survey was only sent out to social service agencies, this year, we are expanding the survey reach to not only SSAs, but also community care organizations, as well as charities. This will grow our potential respondent pool from 500 to over 2,000 respondents, and we highly encourage everyone to participate in the survey this year to contribute to a positive response rate. So this year's survey contains 3 sections in the order of demographic questions, core DAI questions, as well as additional non-scoring questions. Demographic questions will request for your organizational information, as well as some figures on your financial and manpower resources. Core DAI questions, which make up the key section of this survey, will consist of 33 questions that seek to understand your organization's digital maturity levels. And finally, additional non-scoring questions will seek to understand your organization's key drivers, obstacles, and readiness levels for digitalization. This is a closer look at some of the important details that will be asked as part of the demographic questions of the survey. we encourage all organizations to have this information on hand to facilitate the smooth completion of these questions. If you still may not have the answers to some of these questions, even after consulting others in the organization, you may input 000 instead. That being said, we highly encourage everyone to fill in as much as they can, as it will help to provide a more holistic understanding of the organization's digital maturity. However, do take note that key information such as the registered organization name, including branch name if any, as well as the 10-character UEN number are compulsory fields. Moving on to the primary part of the survey, core DAI questions. In this section, you will be asked to state your organization's current and target digital maturity for 33 dimensions across 6 building blocks, as outlined in the DAI framework for the nonprofit sector. There will be 4 levels of digital maturity for each dimension. Levels 1 to 4 are arranged in ascending levels of maturity. Level 1 means that for the particular dimension, your organization has no digital initiatives in place, or you are only at the early stage of digitalization with no roadmap or target state defined. Level 2 means that you are starting to explore digitalization, but is doing so in a more ad hoc manner with small-scale initiatives, and there's no governance currently in place to track performance and impact. Level 3 means that digital initiatives are being scaled up right now in your organization, but structures and systems are still being set up to manage digitalization in a more organized and integrated manner. At level 4, digital initiatives have been deployed at scale in your organization, and a structured governance approach guides your execution and impact measurement, and you are currently reaping significant value for digitalization. Each dimension will involve a selection of your current digital maturity, which is where your organization is at today, as well as your target digital maturity, which is where your organization would like to be by the year 2027. The questions in this section will be arranged in the following manner. You'll first see a question which is linked to each dimension in the framework. Below that will be 4 levels of digital maturity, and you will first select the level that best matches the state of maturity of your organization today, followed by the level that you desire to be in 3 years' time in 2027. Please note that the selected target maturity has to be equal or higher than the current maturity. We have also included I don't know or not applicable options for instances where you might be unsure which levels to select, or when you perceive the question or options to be irrelevant for your organization. However, do note that if you perceive your organization's maturity level to be below level 1, for instance, we advise that you still select level 1 because the selection of not applicable would render your response removed from the survey analysis. To help bring clarity to some of the terms used in the question, you can also refer to the footnote section, where we have included explanations for key terms and abbreviations, and also a glossary link where we have listed down the full list of terms. And finally, we also have a remarks box for you to add additional remarks on your answer. Now, to provide a clearer look at the survey, we thought that it would be helpful to walk through some sample questions in today's webinar. I'll hand the time for a moment back to my colleague Seng Chi, who will give a brief rundown of a few questions that you can expect to see in the survey.
Thanks, Rachel. So I think what we try and do here, as we mentioned earlier, is about 33 different dimensions. And so you can see it's actually quite comprehensive. And what we selected today is just a subset, right? For some of the dimensions which people have asked about, typically have questions, whether through email or otherwise, right? Just to give a sense of, or give more color of what each of these are and what you can expect to see, and to also get some level of calibration for when you are actually filling it in. So first is, for example, program development, right? So this is part of digitalizing the core, where program development is really thinking about how do you think about developing new services, new programs for stakeholders, for service users, right? To what extent do you use digital tools, digitally supported processes in the development of new programs? And here, again, we have 4 levels, right? When we think about level 1, this is the traditional way that I think a lot of program development is done, right? It's very top-down, right? Someone decides to do something, it's done in a waterfall manner. Waterfall meaning you do it in a very linear, sequential manner, right? You say, okay, each piece is going to come, there's a lot of dependency, each piece comes one by one, and maybe you may use simple tools like Google Docs, right, SharePoint, etc., to facilitate collaboration. And then reviews are done maybe in an ad hoc manner, perhaps a few months later, or when someone says, "Oh, how is it going?" Right, and then you actually do that study there, right? Level 2, when we think about this, is shifting from waterfall to adopt some agile principles. So agile is about thinking, how do we do this in sprints, where it's a shorter, iterative, flexible kind of approach to project management, where we try and increasingly build higher level of granularity, high levels of specificity, as we get more confidence that it's what we need, right? Begin to run some pilots of new programs, new digital services using new tools, right? Some people use Trello, some people use other tools as well for project management or program management there. But also not just about how you do it, but also trying to collect data to ensure that we have a relatively tight feedback loop, right? To guide performance, right? Guide further development of such programs, to make sure that everything you're doing is data backed, right? But again, this is still initial stages on a more ad hoc basis, right? Level 3 then talks about goes from just doing an ad hoc basis to doing more frequently, regularly using agile development process to do some of these things. You've rolled out digitally enabled pilots for these new programs, and you also have the governance structures to have some end-to-end tracking, right, in terms of data, where existing programs data that you're collecting is fed into developing new programs, into the thought process when you want to prioritize what to do, who to support, right? What new features or functions you're going to add. But this is also then shared across the organization so that you can then add more things to the funnel, so that every person in the organization can say, look, I'm looking at the data that I have, right? These are some other suggestions for new services and programs. And this is how we can potentially run quick iterative pilots to test whether it works with the service users or not. And the idea here is really different from level 1 and 2, is really that here you have some more data to get some level of confidence, so that when you do a program, you don't end up finding out that, oh, actually, maybe there's not so much of a need there, or maybe you have only a few people who are actually doing it or picking it up. And level 4 is around having these processes and your data platforms. So data platforms are basically things like data lakes, data warehouses. These are digital platforms in which you ingest your data to be able to share it effectively across the organization, right? So your development process and your data platforms are closely integrated, right? So that there's a tight feedback loop. The moment you try a new program, you collect data to be able to assess on a very regular cadence, right, how well it's doing. And you also explore the use of advanced digital technologies to be able to facilitate some level of rapid innovation and piloting, right? If we go to the next dimension, right, for example, another example is personalization. So some of you may have heard, not in social services, but in the private sector, where you think about personalization, where some people may have heard of the term segment of one. The idea is about how do you reach out to consumers, customers in a way that they like, with the messages that they like, so that they are best able to engage with you in brand as a brand, right? This could be messaging, this could be services or other things, right? So this is using data, advanced analytics to be able to understand your consumer, understanding what they are, right? And then be able to then provide or guide action that way. Now, so if we go from this in terms of level 1, it's about, you may not have a strategic agenda for personalization, right? We use traditional segmentations, right? This is demographics, old, young, income, high, medium, low income, maybe gender or otherwise, to design programs that engage with stakeholders. So this is more broad brush, right? This is, for lack of a better word, broader, more cookie cutter approaches that are then used for individuals. If we go to the next, right, level 2 is starting to develop a strategic agenda, right? To how do we actually personalize our services better, personalize our engagements. And this could be to service users, it could be to donors, it could be to volunteers, right? In different ways, right? We've got some basic data analytics to help to direct or get better market segments, right? We're actively then developing a data infrastructure to facilitate that, right? When we think about level 3, then it's about building up that strategy, having a longer term roadmap, being able to develop some personalized experiences for some strategic stakeholders. This could mean being able to actually engage with donors at the right point with a customized message that will then incentivize them to want to actually give money at that point, right? It could be targeting volunteers with programs that, or initiatives or opportunities which you know that they will be more engaged on. But it also could be service users. How do we actually provide a sense of, like, okay, they understand me well, right? Using digital tools to support the social workers on the ground, right? However, a lot of this in level 3, the difference between level 3 and level 4, which you see in a bit, is that this is still done in a more ad hoc manner, focused on specific individual channels. Whereas in level 4 is what we think about, what we call omni-channel, which means regardless of whatever platform they come to you, whether they call you, they come down to your site, your center in person, whether it is, regardless of whoever touches or engages with them, they still have a personalized experience because you have the data infrastructure to support, right? Whether it's the people in the call center, your social worker on the ground, the person at the center, to provide that same level of experience, right? So that's level 4. Now, if we think about another dimension for service delivery, right? This is really about the provision of services, right? To service users, to clients in an effective, efficient manner using digitalization, right? Level 1, when we think about this, it's around introducing basic digital tools, right? These are like a Google Forms, email, Pay Now, right? For what we call ancillary processes. Ancillary processes just mean the supporting functions that you have to do in process of actually serving this client. It could mean collecting data, registering for some form or some event, right? Making certain payments. However, when you think about the actual core services and programs, the part which actually allows you to have an impact on their social outcomes, those are still physical or manual, right? Level 2, right? Most of your ancillary processes, like what we mentioned earlier, data collection, etc., right, have been optimized with digital tools, right? These are still relatively standalone digital tools, but still optimized that way. And we're starting to explore first use cases to think about how we can use digitalization to support or enable better service outcomes and deploy initial pilot projects there. This could mean sensors in center-based facilities or home-based facilities. It could mean service robots. It could mean other platforms, depending on the type of services you provide. Level 3 will identifying some of these core programs, the processes, right? And we've already started to, that we think that can be substantially optimized. We've identified a pathway, which technologies to use, whether it is things like AI, extended reality, robotics, and are starting to already implement some of these solutions, right? But when you implement these solutions, it's not just about deploying the solution there, but it's really about thinking about how you optimize this in an end-to-end manner, taking a stakeholder journey approach, right? Not just saying, I deploy the solution, but how do I actually change and transform the process to be able to be best supported, right, by digital technology? And there's also some level of integration between the tools you use and the systems you have on the back end. This could be in data platforms like we mentioned earlier, right? It could mean also when you do certain things on your IoT sensors or your CCTVs or things, how do you feed that data back in so that it can be used for other things? And the fourth, level 4 is really the whole service journey is optimized. You've reviewed it to make sure it's a lean process and then digitally enabled process as well. Both your core and ancillary processes are automated, integrated, right? Then this allows you to shift from a more reactive stance when people reach out to you, right? They say, okay, I need help, and then you support them, to a more proactive stance because you understand their needs. You are able to identify early warning signals, lead indicators, right? Because you have the sensors or trackers there to be able to then support them, right? They've also used different digital technologies or advanced digital technologies, right, to maximize the efficiency, effectiveness for your services, right? So service outcomes, service quality, but also efficiency, being able to do more with less. Now, the first 3 that we've talked about is more the functions, right? Just to give you a sense of what this looks like when you actually deploy the 4 levels in terms of the what. But we also have some on the how, right? For example, on the next page, you think about organization and governance. It's not just about discreetly doing, right, technologies, adopting technologies, right? For you to have sustainable digital transformation, you need to be set up well. You need your organization to have the right structures in place, the right governance structures in place to support and drive digital adoption across the organization. When we talk about level 1, you may not have a central orchestrating body. This may be very ad hoc, right? Someone has an idea on the ground, they just do it. Very little coordination, right? It's more driven by individuals, right? You may not have KPIs, right? Especially outcome-based KPIs to assess digital initiatives and performance. And so that's essentially what level 1 is. Level 2 then is about saying, okay, we now have set up a small team to look at governance. We believe digital is important. Right? We now have dedicated a small team to really focus on this. Depending on your organization size, it may be a couple of people, it may be a larger team. But we've also put some budget there and some decision rights. It may not be a lot, it may not be a significant amount of digital rights, but allowing them to support or come in as a horizontal to drive digital across functions and teams. The organization broadly believes that yes, we should digitalize, but it's also very fragmented. So we have someone who's playing more of a program management office, coordinating and tracking things, right, rather than driving things centrally. And you have some level of basic KPIs, but these are more input-based. I have number of systems, right? How many people are using this system, etc., versus thinking about outcome. Level 3 then talks about having a centralized digital function that's then responsible for driving, orchestrating your digital agenda, right? You have certain pools of talent, or what we call centers of excellence in teams that are actually driving and deploying, right? That can also collaborate and share best practices. So you notice there's a shift from being fragmented, siloed, individual ad hoc to really being orchestrated, right? We have a governance framework that then assesses, right, in a structured manner, what do we fund? How do we fund? How do we prioritize? How do we allocate resources? Right? It's not to say that you have to allocate a lot, but you have to have the right framework in place to make sure that you can think about what's the ROI, whether it's a back-end solution you're deploying or a front-end service delivery solution you're deploying. What is the outcome, and therefore what's the right level of resources, whether it's financial manpower to drive this, as well as the KPIs that you're going to measure on a regular basis to be able to see, are you achieving your goals? There's also a dedicated or designated leader, right, that's driving this digital transformation. And finally, level 4, right, digital innovation is an integral part of all processes and decisions, right? When we think about this, right, it's not just about saying, okay, I'm going to digitalize as a separate ad hoc CCA, but it's more, how do I do things better, do things different? And digital is at the core of this. How do I engage my users better, right? And digital innovation is part of that process as we think about service innovation and service delivery as well, right? It's a top priority because we recognize that it has that transformative potential. You can do more with less. And we have governance structures across the organization with clear outcome-based KPIs, right, that we can then track to see how these digital initiatives are tied to outcomes for the organization. Another example we're going to talk about is digital and data platforms. So I alluded to this earlier. So what are data platforms, right? You have a lot of systems, a lot of data that's collected on different products or services, right? Whether it's Excel, PDF, etc. A data platform is that glue, if you imagine, underneath it that allows these different systems and sources to talk to each other. So you always have a single source of truth, right? This allows you to then be a lot more accurate and confident to make rapid data-backed decisions versus having to do a project just to try and put data together or scrape data together in an ad hoc manner. So level 1, right? Much of your data is still stored on physical paper, right? A lot of digital data that you have is very fragmented, scattered around Excel, PDF, all these other small documents. You never really put it all together. Or if you have, it's all very fragmented in an ad hoc manner where I put another spreadsheet to pull relevant data, right? You don't have data platforms or systems. And because of that, it's difficult for you to build a comprehensive view of who your clients are, how many do you have, how is the services doing, right? Your different products and services and your clients may touch different touch points, but yet at the same time, right, you don't know how you're actually supporting them in a holistic manner. Level 2, most of your data is digitized, right? However, there are some challenges around data quality, data reliability. Perhaps some of this could be because some of you do manual data entry, right, from physical forms, or maybe people don't fill it in well. And you're starting to experiment with data platforms like data lakes to start to build a single source of truth, to start to connect these data sets together. You may not have connected all of them, but at least for some of them, you've started to connect them together to see how you can put them into one common table, common structure, to allow you to make more data-backed decisions. Level 3, right, all your data has been digitized. You have standardized data platforms for your most critical data sets, especially client information or donor information and volunteer information, which then allows you to then access and manage these data sets more efficiently, right? The idea behind this, some of you may have heard of things like Spark, Hadoop, SQL, things like that. So these are just different technologies and coding languages that allow you to engage and pull data, right, from data lakes. But you have this platform, imagine like a repository, right, of all the data and information that you have that you can then access very quickly through a few lines of code. You may not have to code, there are other ways to do it as well. But the idea is that you have a single source of truth there from all your different systems, such that I'm able to marry data from different sources together to get a slightly different cut Right? This allows you to make much better data-backed decisions. But of course, then there's still opportunity then in level 3 to improve this, whether it's data quality, reliability, whether it's things being connected together or otherwise. And level 4 is really having successful implementation, enterprise-wide data platforms, allowing you to seamlessly access, analyze data from all your systems, right? Because of this, right, largely API-based connections, right, you're then able to have comprehensive, accurate, real-time view of all the data that you need about your customers, services, donors, volunteers, etc., right, on demand. You can then allows you to make data-driven decisions. Like if, for example, your stakeholders or ED or board or whoever asks for data, you can immediately pull it up, right? Do whatever analysis and cuts, right? Because you know that all of the data and piping is done accurately, and anything you pull will be correct and accurate. And this then allows you, we talked about Agile earlier, we talked about connecting things and being able to have a tight feedback loop, then allows you to actually enhance the performance and effectiveness of your programs on the ground. Two more, right? One is future-ready IT function. So Eileen alluded to this earlier. This is the ops tech integration or collaboration that Eileen was talking about, right? How does your tech function work and interface and support your business service delivery? Because traditionally, not just in the social service sector, in the private sector as well, IT is viewed as an outsourced function. IT is viewed as a cost center, right? I'm sure in the social service sector, many of you also say, okay, IT, just do my computer, just do my Wi-Fi, just do my whatever, and it's okay. But that's how do we actually think about this integration and collaboration to achieve better business outcomes, right? Level 1, your core services, tech functions are discrete, siloed, separate, right? Technology is a cost center, like what I mentioned, and it's very supplier, consumer or customer kind of relationship between the business and IT, where it's just, oh, I have a problem, IT come and fix, right? Things like that, right? Level 2, right? Slightly different way of working, slightly different of structuring, right? The tech function is organized around some of your internal departments and functions, so they have a better understanding of what your department aims to do, the business goals, business outcomes. They've started to build some level of expertise to support the relevant functions, programs, etc. And they are sort of aligned to the needs that you have, but it's still their alignment there, but you still drive the show and you still use them on a more ad hoc manner. Third, right, tech function organized around certain services or platforms so that you have better outcome, better overview, right? Tech is also involved as a strategic partner. So when you're planning it, you bring them in, right? They come up with own ideas as well. They're able to challenge business requirements, right? They're able to help you push the thinking around what you can do because they bring the topic expertise. You bring the content, the context in which you need, and the outcomes that you need to achieve, and how do you work together closely to achieve better outcomes for your stakeholders. And the last is really organized around the customer or the client or the stakeholder, donors, volunteers, etc., right? The channels. So they are a strategic partner, right? And an integral part of your decision making, your operational planning, right? They have clear decision rights as well to be able to influence how and where you do certain things, how and where you make certain choices about your programs as well. Now, the last example I wanted to pick is cyber, right? And cyber is because a lot of people tend to ask questions around this. I know cyber sometimes also does seem relatively scarier, right? Because it sounds, it's a risk profile kind of thing, right? But the thing about cyber first is, when we think about cyber here in BCG, it's really not just technology, right? It's more holistic than that, where you think about your people, your process, your culture, and how you're actually driving that sense of cyber security culture and security and cyber literacy across the organization. Because sometimes it's your systems that are weak, but more often than not, it's not the systems, and it's how the people that are actually using the systems, right? So when you think about this in level 1, your cybersecurity is still viewed as a technology IT function domain, little business involvement. You've not identified your key digital assets, what data is sensitive, what data is risky, right? But you've deployed some basic things like antivirus, firewalls, right? What's par for the course today. Level 2, we have a program with a designated leader that oversees this. It includes governance, strategy, people, technology. So it's much more holistic view, but yet at the same time, it's more of a program to more aspirational, right? You don't have a comprehensive view of your digital assets, right? This is really what systems do you have, what data do you have on what systems, what the vulnerabilities are, right? What the risks are. And that's what we mean by having a view of your digital assets. And you've also not implemented best practices across the organization, because it's about cascading down to the ground such that every single member of your organization is cyber literate, cyber aware, right? And able to actually be mitigate some of the risks that you see. Level 3, your cyber program is prioritized around your key digital assets. So you've identified it and you've developed a program to be able to defend and mitigate the risks, right, within reason. Right? Security is a priority for your leadership, right? And you drive a sense of security, a security culture across the organization, right? Where it's developed, implemented in depth with technologies, processes, people, etc. And you also test it, right? Whether it's with vulnerability assessments, whether it's simulated phishing campaigns, to identify potential gaps, potential issues, and targeted interventions to guide employees in their journey to make sure that you actually have a good cybersecurity posture. And as you develop new initiatives, new digital initiatives, right, you incorporate cybersecurity by design and not as an afterthought. And number 4, it's a comprehensive program, covers all domains, all parts of the value chain, all your different stakeholders, even if they may not be in your organization, so including suppliers, clients, and others. You have cyber intelligence capabilities to identify potential threats to your assets, right? You have technologies, analytics, right? Using new architectures, and also deploying offensive techniques, right? To do vulnerability penetration testing, right? Red teams to do some of this. So I'll pause there, right? Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to write. But the question here is really, right, is really to share some of the thinking and the logic behind some of these levels. There are more questions, like Eileen mentioned, it is long, right? But the idea is more to give you a flavor of what to expect and how to calibrate, because you recognize that some of these terms are new to you. Some of these technology terms are not some things that you may interface with on a regular basis, but also allows you to then calibrate and get a sense of who in your organization will be best positioned to answer some of this. And ideally, if you have a few people from different parts of your organization, then we are able to think in a blended response, because we'll then be sharing individual gift backpacks with your organization. And so the more responses you have, the more accurate a score you can get. And so as a leadership, whether it's an ED or otherwise, then you can get a better sense or understanding of how your organization is like and what's the real lived reality of digitalization on the ground. Okay, so I'll pause there and I'll hand it back to Rachel to share some tips and tricks around like how best to actually go about filling these filling the survey in.
Thanks, Xingqi. So just a moment before we move on to the tips and tricks, we also want to bring you through the last section of the survey, which is additional non-scoring questions. So do note that the answers to questions in this section will not contribute to your final DAI score, but they help us understand you better as an organization. For instance, what are your top drivers for digitalization? Is it to improve service quality or to upskill your talent? And when it comes to things like challenges faced, is funding or manpower, for example, your biggest challenges? We also are keen to know about the areas that you need the most support in, and also to know more about the current usage of digital initiatives and tech solutions that you have taken up. Also do note that for NCSS members, you will be asked a few additional questions to gather feedback on the Industry Digital Plan for Social Services, or IDPSS. So the IDPSS is a guide that was published by NCSS back in 2021 to help SSAs along in a digital journey. Because we are working on a refresh of the new version of the IDPS to be published next year, we are seeking feedback from NCSS members, whether or not they found the guide useful, what they'd like to see in a new version that will make it more relevant and applicable to them. So once again, here are some examples of questions that you will find in this section on additional non-scoring questions. So this is the question that asks for your awareness, utilization, as well as satisfaction levels for the various digital initiatives that are out there available to non-profit organizations like yourself, such as the Tech Booster, Tech and Go, Charities Capability Fund, and etc. Another question on the adoption of tech solutions aims to find out more about the relevance of different types of tech solutions to your organization. If you have adopted some of these solutions over here, like enterprise software, CRM, finance systems, for example, we are keen to understand the types of vendors that you have engaged and also the impact of such solutions on your productivity. As mentioned earlier, for NCSS members, there will also be a few extra questions on feedback for the IDPSS. Now, we will cover some tips and techniques for self-assessment. So firstly, on selecting the right respondents to do the survey. We highly encourage multiple respondents per organization to participate in the survey so that the results can be more accurate. So preferably, we will need 2 respondents with the following profiles. one respondent who is the head of organization or equivalent and who has a holistic view of the organization's strategy and operations, and the second respondent who can be a department or functional head familiar with the organization's operational or IT functions. Do note that the survey link will be sent only to the head of organization, who should forward the link to the relevant respondents in the organization. And each respondent is encouraged to answer independently, and no calibration of answers among multiple respondents is actually required. Secondly, as you attempt the questions, there may be a few instances where you are unsure which maturity level to select. In these cases, we highly encourage everyone to just use your best judgment to select a representation of your organization's current and target maturity. There are no right or wrong answers, and in fact, your honest perceptions will help us inform a more accurate view of the state of digitalization in the sector. In the instance that you feel that the maturity level of your organization is sitting between two levels, we advise that you just choose the best answer that represents your target state, and then also leave a comment and let us know your concern. So do note that in all the questions, your organization does not need to perfectly fit the description to be considered performing at that level. You're just advised to give the best representation, and we will analyze accordingly. And also in instances where you might deem yourself to not have a sufficient understanding for a particular area, you are once again encouraged to provide your response on a best effort basis, or you can also refer to the glossary which we have prepared and is linked under each question in the survey to find definitions for technical terms or phrases that might be causing a slight difficulty in understanding. Alternatively, you can also reach out to us via email at nonprofitdaisurvey@bcg.com with your query, and we'll get back to you the next working day. You also have the option, if you are really unclear, to select the I don't know option, and your answer for that question will not be included in the overall analysis. Thirdly, one last question on selecting the right maturity level. We also want to emphasize that there is also a not applicable option as well for each question. So if you select that one, the answer will not be included in the overall analysis. Thirdly, on additional comments or remarks, while comments and remarks are not mandatory, they are highly encouraged as they'll help us better interpret your organization's results. So for example, you can add more details such as examples of your ongoing or planned digital initiatives in your organization, and also perhaps share some challenges that you may predict in reaching the target digital maturity. Now, what can you expect from participating in this year's DAI survey? Every single organization who completes the survey will receive an individualized DAI report. It will contain scores of your organization's current and target maturity, comparison of your results with other peers in the sector, as well as a collation of resources that you can tap on to accelerate your digital transformation. Concurrently, we are also developing a new edition of the Industry Digital Plan for Social Services, as mentioned earlier, which you can use together with your DAI results to guide your digitalization journey with greater clarity. So this report will be published in 2024, which is next year, and it will include a digital roadmap to be used in tandem with the DAI report, some case studies of successful digitalization in the social services, specific next steps that you can take to accelerate your journey, a list of tech solutions that are relevant to the sector's needs, and of course, useful links to support channels and resources. Much has been said, and perhaps this is the most important part of today's webinar. So these are the key dates and things that you can take note of. So this year's survey will be open from 6 September to 26 September. So that's next Wednesday, and organizations have 3 weeks to complete the survey. So do look out for the survey link that will be sent to your head of organization next Wednesday on 6 September. And we encourage everyone to set aside around 45 minutes to 1 hour to complete the survey. And we also encourage that you complete the survey on a desktop, or laptop, or tablet for the most optimal user experience. We also understand that some respondents might, after starting to do the survey, might need to pause and resume afterwards. And we have optimized the survey link so that if you access the same link using the same device and the same browser, you can pick up right from where you last left off. And if you need any further support, feel free to refer to the FAQs that will be included in your email invitation that we sent to you on 6 September, or email us directly at our help desk. After completing the survey, all organizations who participated can look forward to receiving the individualized reports and also an invitation to a post-DAI webinar that will be held between November this year and January next year. So thanks everyone for your attention, and I'll now be heading to the FAQs and Q&A.
Okay, thank you to our consultants. Okay, everyone, I hope you are still with us. I saw so many questions coming in, and we really want to try to address them all. So please put in your questions right now. Take a moment, any of the questions that come out as we were presenting, put them in now. And I just want to address this top one, that comes from, different organizations. That is this only for NCSS SSAs? Yeah, that is like one of the top questions. And no, the answer is no. Yeah, though NCSS is the main organizer of this DAI study this year, but we are really wanting to do this for all nonprofits. So if you are a charity organization, whether you're from the religious, the sports, the arts and heritage subsectors, or you're from the healthcare and comcare organizations, everyone, we are encouraging everyone in the nonprofit sector to do this so that we can have a holistic view of the entire nonprofit sector. So beyond just social services. Okay, so I'll just give you some time now to punch in the questions in the Q&A. We'll try to pick that out, the top questions that keep coming up, all right? Okay, now can we go to the next slide? So at this time, I also wanted to just tap on everyone. Can you please give us your feedback on the feedback forum? So please put out your mobile phones right now. Just help us, very simple, like 5 questions feedback. Yeah, because we are going to hold a post-DAI webinar, right? When we get the results, we want to share that back to everyone. So we really needed your help to let us know, the amount of details that we are sharing. I know it could be kind of fairly complex, or what are the areas that we can actually improve in the next time we conduct this webinar. Okay, so can I just have your very quick 2 minutes to scan this QR code and give us your feedback. Okay, right now while you're doing your feedback, I'm going into the Q&A panel just to take a look at the questions that are coming in. Okay. All right, we're just gonna give everyone another few more minutes. So thank you all for hanging here with us till now. That's really a lot of information. But don't worry, we're going to send the deck, like we say, next Monday. Yeah, so there's a lot of deep information. So I think it might be better for you to have the materials. We're going to send this next Monday because we're going to trigger the survey next Wednesday. So you still have some time to go through the materials that we discussed today. Okay. All right. Okay, now, so help us to go to the back. Okay, let me go on to talk about the questions. So we do have some frequently asked questions. So let me go there now. Okay, so this is one of the questions very commonly asked because we have a mixed bag of participants in this webinar. So if you are an NCSS member, you are also a Care organization, and you are also a charity. So do you have to take multiple surveys? Okay, the answer is no. So we will be distributing the survey in this sequence. So we'll first distribute to NCSS members, and that will come from NCSS. And then we will be triggering to the community care organizations, one non-NCSS members, and this one will go out from MOH AIC. And finally, to all the charities, okay, who are non-Comcare and non-NCSS members, and that will come from MCCY. So each organization should only receive one survey invitation, and depending on from whom you receive that survey, that would be your primary survey organizer. Okay, so in case you get more than one, yeah, then just reply, to the BCG email and let us know. But we have done quite a lot of work background to make sure that we don't inconvenience you, and so we should be only getting one link. Okay, next question. Okay, this is the top question. Okay, I know many of you have already done, some of you, I think, yeah, done the IMDA annual survey, and that has just concluded, I think, in the March timeframe. And now, for the second half of the year, we have the NCSS study. So is it necessary? Okay, I just want to iterate that the angle from both entities, IMDA and NCSS, we are taking a little bit differently. Yeah, so we have we will for IMDA, they conduct it annually, but it's a very broad base and it's like a pulse check, so they don't really ask for the ambition. But for the nonprofit one, we are doing really a deep dive, so it is dimensions which are very customized to our sector. So you will see that actually the questions are not the same. Yeah, because from IMDA, it is more SME centric, but for the nonprofit one, it is more, it is definitely nonprofit centric. So you can see dimensions which are very customized only to our sector. Yeah, and we also, I'm going to give you customized intervention and recommendations. Yeah, so this one is really the one that in a nonprofit sector that you need to take, right? So we do encourage you to please take this, and even though that you have already completed the IMDA one. All right, but we are working with IMDA. That's the results from this current iteration that we're going to use it in the next IMDA one. Yeah, so we are working with them on this linkage so that you don't have to do it so many times. Okay, so we'll inform you in due course, and that is what we are trying to do. So, but for this one, for NCSS, please participate. Okay, next one. Okay, so yeah, so this one just quickly, right? So yeah, it's for all compare. So if you are supporting MOH subvented programs, then please, this is relevant for you as well. Okay, next one. Okay, I think this is also a common top question in the Q&A. Is like, how are we going to use this information? All right, so I think Rachel just now, she has talked about the give back pack. So maybe just let me peel this down a little bit more. So after you do the survey, we're going to analyze the data, and we're going to give every respondent a customized give back pack. Means that it is your agency's score and also relevant compared to the whole nonprofit sector. Yeah, and if you had done the 2021 DAI study, you will also be able to see how your organization has progressed. Yeah, so what your score was in 2021 and where you are right now in 2023. And then we'll also give you recommendations depending on your archetypes. Yeah, like what your score is and where you are. And we'll give you those recommendations as well. And that's why for NCSS members, we have the IDPSS, which is the Industry Digital Plan for Social Services. Yeah, so that we will give the recommendation from that roadmap as well. That will be very customized for your organization. Similarly, for the Care Organizations, we have the CC-DTP, which is the Community Care Digital Transformation Plan. Yeah, so you will be able to have your results, which is like the health check from the DI survey, and then with the roadmap recommendations. Okay, so that's what you can expect to receive after you complete this survey. Okay, next slide. Okay, so this is just about grants. We won't talk so much about this, but I think there are some questions in the Q&A to talk about, what are resources that are available to us. And that is why it's so important for you to take the DAI survey, because then we know where you are and where you need to go. And then we will, look at the funding schemes and the resources that each of these entities have. And then we'll be able to advise you accordingly that meets your needs and requirements. Okay, next one. Okay, so for the IDPSS, we're going to launch it early next year. And also for the community care organizations, your CC-DTP will be refreshed next year as well. So even though when we did this roadmaps and plans, it is very targeted to a certain sector, but there will still be some of the solutions that can be generic and applicable across all the nonprofit organizations. So any agency, can feel free to tap on it. Yeah, and to reference it. Okay, next slide. Okay, now let's take a look at the Q&A panel, and I believe we have covered many of them already. So we have covered the one from IMDA. Okay, and I think there is this question, that is from Singchi. I think it's good for us to talk about that. It's like when we look through the levels, 4 is like something that's out of this world. I mean, how should a respondent look at that?
Yeah, thanks. So I noticed that quite a few people are asking that, right? And I think maybe this is a function of us being in Singapore, where if you put scores, then everyone must aim for the highest. So I think just as context, the level 1, 2, 3, 4 is what we develop and deploy actually globally. And so we keep a consistent frame of reference, right, across all sectors, right? So the level 1, 2, 3, 4 leveling is the same as what we deploy in the IMDA one in the private sector as well. And so the idea there is to say, okay, across organizations, right, this is actually where we are, so we ensure comparability. Now, having said it does not mean that you must hit level 4, right? I think in different sectors, especially social service sector, non-profit sector, sometimes level 2 or level 3 is enough, is sufficient for you, because not everyone has to become like a tech organization. Not everyone has to have, right, to actually start building software, to have all these functions. That's why we also, in the NCSS study, we ask for your target digital maturity. So you self-assess, right, to say, okay, I'm at level 1, but I think level 2 is enough, or level 3 is enough, right? And therefore, that's my target. And so when we talk about it, it's always in relation to your goals. So when we actually distill the results and work with NCSS, then we're able to say, okay, this is where the sector is currently today based on what you share, and this is where you want to be. And if you notice, actually, when we shared earlier that in 2021, the target was actually level 3, right? It's not level 4. And that's okay. And then the question we have then is, how do we actually support you to get to where you want to be, where your target is, right? So don't worry about saying, oh, level 4 is there, I must be level 4. It's just a consistent rubric so that we are able to ensure comparability. But then just answer based on what you think is right. And out of all of you and all the participants, will then put a picture together to say, on some of these dimensions, level 2 is sufficient. Some of these dimensions, level 3 is sufficient. Where is there a bigger gap between where you are and what your goals are, what the sector is sharing with us? And then we can think about how to support from there. Hopefully that gives a better understanding as you think about this, right, and answer some of those questions.
Yeah, thanks, Michi. I'd just like to add, that I feel, as well, the question is being asked that, it's something that's very far-fetched for the social service sector. And I think like one of the respondents was saying that we depend a lot on government subsidies and help and all that. And I think this is exactly the reason why we're trying to do the DAI survey. Yeah, and like what Michi said, we're not trying to reach 100. Yeah, right from the beginning, but it is a journey, and we should see, ideally what is an ideal world, and then where we are right now, where we want to go. Yeah, and so it is really so important. I'll call out again, everyone, please put in your most honest answer. If we are all at level 1, we will all work together to go to level 2. Yeah, and that is what we, as NCSS, we are committed to enabling our SCCs. Okay, I think there is also a question right here about who should respond. Let me take this. We say that we need at least 2. Yeah, and I think Eileen also talked about that to have a more well-rounded one. So if you a more well-rounded response, so if you have different classes, different operations, different business groups, so feel free to send that to relevant people. So we say at least 2, so that we have the head of the organization, right? And then some of the other leads. Yeah, so you could actually have more than 2, right? But this link will only be sent to the head, so just one link, and then the head can decide who else to go. So we don't have a limit or a cap on the number of people that can participate. And if you do decide to come together in a room and to calibrate the responses, then that's fine as well. Yeah, and that's okay. Yeah, but if you don't have the opportunity to do that, then each of the respondent can put in your individual responses, and we'll take an average of everyone's score to be the final score for the organization. Okay, so I think there is also another question which let me see. Let me see if there were. Okay, hold on. There's just a long list right here. Xingqi, I'm not sure. Is there anyone that you want to just zoom in?
Yep. Well, okay, I was just replying to one. So basically, some people ask that you participate in 2021, right? Will you see your scores? Will you get your scores? So I think there's two things. So yes, if you participate this year, if you did participate in 2021, we'll also show you the longitudinal change. So your gift back pack this year will see two sets of results, one for 2021, one for 2023, right? And then you see the differences there as well. If you're not sure whether you did participate, you can reach out to, I think, NCSS colleagues or otherwise, and we can check our database to see if you participated as well, just to give you a heads up there, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you can come to us. Yeah, we could check on that previous data. Oh, I have this question that's for PCGs. How is the scoring calculated? How do we actually arrive at the final score?
Yeah, so when we have level 1 to 4 in a simple manner, right? Essentially, level 1 to 4 then gets translated or rescaled into a 0 to 100 level, right, at the dimension level. And ideally, if you have multiple respondents per organization, then we'll then average the scores, right, across the different respondents to get the score for your organization for each dimension, right? And what happens then is there's two things after that, right? For your own agency scores, we then average the scores of your dimensions of what they have, and you then get your agency score. And for NCSS, then or the sectors, right? Then we then aggregate it up to the sector scores for each of these dimensions, and then just average out there. So essentially, it's a level 1, 2, 3, 4, then gets recalibrated to 0 to 100, and then we just take different versions of averages.
Yeah, that's right. So thank you, and let me see. Okay, I think there's a question also on how is this different from the OHFSS, the Organization Health Framework Assessment. Okay, so this is specific to SSAs. So just wanted to say that for the health, that is all domains, of which digitalization is one of them. Yeah, so this DAI is very, very specific. It's deep dive in the digitalization pillar. So you're going to know, much more about how you are in terms of digital maturity. But for the op health, it's actually a framework. So it includes other domains like people and management, strategy, leadership. Yeah, so that's actually the main difference. Okay, let me see if there are other questions that are coming in.
I'll answer the different one. How is it different from IMDA? So I think Tracy alluded to it, right? Just to reiterate, that IMDA 1 is really intended as a pulse check, right? So it only asks about the current digital maturity, and it's a generic set of questions across all sectors, right? For the NCSS or the non-profit deep dive, we've customized each of the individual questions to the social service sector, including the questions and the prompts and the levels, so to make it calibrated, right? And we also ask a more holistic set of questions, including what your target digital maturity is, as well as additional questions that can then guide NCSS, MOH, MCCY, etc., in how they can develop specific interventions for the social service sector, right? Whereas again at IMDA level, it's more broad-based to understand how it's evolving and which sectors may need a little bit more of their support. Whereas here is really trying to be a lot more targeted and guided there, which is why we encourage you. I know, thank you very much for all your participation in the IMDA one, right? We can't change the 2023 results per se, but we can use this for 2024 because it is relatively closer, right? And if you do participate here, it will really help to guide or provide a good, robust database or fact base for NCSS, MOH, AIC, and MCCY to guide and develop their recommendations accordingly or interventions accordingly.
Thanks. Okay, I want to take one question here. The question is, if you have different programs, different centers or different location, or even you can have a family, right? Like you have different UENs, but you actually have the same management, or you have one UEN, but you have different locations and the state of digital maturity may be different. Yeah, so this is why that we ask that you have different people representing, okay, the organization. So one UEN will actually have only one score, so we are not able to provide a score specific to your Center A versus Center B. Yeah, but it will be an average. And if you feel that it is helpful for us to kind of understand some of the nuances or some of the background, between the different centers, please feel free to put into the comments. Yeah, but quantitatively, we are able to only generate one score for each UEN. Okay, there are exceptions. So few exceptions apply to some of the SSAs who have the same management across two UENs. So for that one, you should really do just one survey, okay, under one DEN, but you should think of your responses as a whole. Yeah, because it's the same management that is looking across the entire digitalization transformation roadmap. Okay. All right. Any more questions coming in? Okay, we'll just get a moment. Okay, I also think there's a question also like, how are we going to share what are the examples or the lessons of how much we have progressed since the last DAI exercise? Yeah, so I think this is something that we'll be able to share in the post-DAI webinar, which will take place sometime in November to January. Okay, that's the case because we may have to take a break in December. People are usually on a downtime. Yeah, so between November and January next year, we will be sending out EDMs to all our organizations in a nonprofit, whether you're SSA or a Care or charity. We'll go to the post-DAI webinar where we'll look at the results. How did we do as compared to 2021? And what are the targeted resources that you can go for? And some of the post-DAI support activities. Okay, so do look out for that one. We're really excited to look at the results. I'm sure all of us do. Yeah, so we're going to meet again sometime then to look at the DI results. Okay, we have
actually, Tracy, there's something I can build on, right? I think the question was answered already, and I think you did mention this, but I just want to drive this home on the whole IDPSS piece, right? I know that not everyone on the call is a social service agency, but I think the reason why comments will be useful, your responses and inputs will be very useful is because we are doing this refresh of the industry digitalization plan, right? Question then is to say, how do we make it most useful for you? And if you participate in the survey, in the DAI, we then have more data points. You can then get the color that you have, right, from your comments, from your scores to better guide it and shape what comes out in this new IDPSS 2.0 to be most relevant to you. And someone asked about what you get out of doing this. You do get your give back packs from 2021, right? Like what you did in 2021. So you'll get a refresh here with longitudinal results. But later on, when the IDPSS also comes out in 2024, you can then use it, right? We're trying to make sure that it's the same language, same vocabulary, so you can actually cross-compare between the documents to then guide your action to allow you to drive digitalization in your organization. So the more inputs you get, the more granularity, the richer, the more comprehensive view we have, the more accurate and the more relevant we can make the IDPSS for you.
Yeah. Okay, I think that's about all the questions we have. So just another call out, right? So next Monday, we will send the materials. Please look at it again and can come back to us. And if you are from a charity or from a Care, we can direct that accordingly to our colleagues. Okay, and you will get the survey link next Wednesday. Okay, and you have 3 weeks to do that. I'm sorry, there's not going to be any extension. So please try to finish this, okay, as early as you can, so that we can try to do our analysis also upfront, right? Yeah, so if you had to share this with a lot more people in your organizations, then do that early on in the cycle. So we will be tracking the participation rate, and we may be reaching out to you as well to chase you for the completion. Okay, we have Eileen come on. All right, we are coming to the end of the webinar. Eileen, come, give us some fighting spirit.
Okay, hi again, everybody. Thanks for sitting through the 1 hour plus. I think there are still 230, at least 230 of you still here, which is great. Okay, so I think reading all the questions, right? I do agree with many of you. I mean, why do you have to do so many surveys? And some of you said, oh, what level 4? We are not some tech company. Actually, I had the same. I mean, Seng-Chi is laughing because I had the same going back and forth with BCG over the many weeks, and Tracy also knows this, right? I was like, social service. I mean, what is our business, right? It's not to be like super tech and stuff like that. Okay, so I want to assure everybody, right? And I'm sure my colleagues at MCCY and AIC and all will also agree. We're not trying to make you super tech or to make you become tech companies, okay? That's not the intention, really. We just want what is best for the clients in terms of service delivery and for the people working in the industry. Because we know today that it is a great challenge, manpower. is a great, great challenge, right? And at the same time, our clients, our citizens, their needs are changing. And many a time it is really more and more complex. So we have to do more with less. And it's just, and then we ask ourselves how, right? So of course, my colleagues who do volunteer management will say, yeah, let's have more volunteers, which is, I totally agree. I also used to handle volunteer management. I'm all for having more and more volunteers, okay? But that may not also be always enough, right? So we do need to look at technology as an enabler. So really, once again, not trying to turn anybody here into a tech company, but how to best exploit technology to really get the service going the way that you want to serve. And all of us here are highly passionate, full of heart, right? And we want to do our best because we want to, help the people out there who really need our help. And how do we do that? And at the same time, we have to help our own staff who are also very tired. Many times they're just really, really tired. So then how do we do this? Right? Technology is one way. I'm not saying, okay, don't get me wrong, it's not the only way. It is one way, right? And that's where NCSS, MSF, AIC, MOH, MCCY, I mean, we're all trying very hard to see how we can partner with all our agencies. Because coming from ministry, I would say, I always tell my people, we can't do this alone. We need all our agencies. We need all of you out there to help us, because none of the things can be done well if it were not for all of you, right? So this is where we want to try and support you. But the DAI is an assessment, it's a self-assessment, really, to tell ourselves, to tell you, right, where you're at. So again, this assessment is not for the purpose of the ministry to judge the agencies, okay? So once again, I need to clarify that it's not about that. It's about agencies. Please see where you're at, right? And look at your services that you're providing, look at your manpower situation, and consider what technology can do for you. And where are you at? Where do you think you want to go? Where do you need to go because of the current constraints, right? Where you can go with the current constraints. And then we talk together to see how we can help you. So the DAI really just helps us to start that conversation properly. I mean, we've had many conversations with many agencies here, right? And we've helped over the years with all the grants. But the DAI gives us a systematic, strategic way to do this. I think that's what I'm saying, okay? Because the teams that are helping all of you are also very lean. Like the SDT team, my team, right? My dear people, right? They're like less than 20 of us trying to help NCSS members, right? It's already 500, right? And we are also working with MCCY to serve other charities which are also non-members. So you can imagine the amount of work, right? So we want to be strategic, and we want to see how we can scale where it matters, and to get the biggest bang for the buck in that sense, right? And the buck, again, I want to emphasize, is not just about money. In fact, money is usually the least of our concern. I know it may sound wrong to some of you, but really money is the least. The greater problem, right, is the manpower. The greater problem is getting the right people, the right skills, and I know it's a great challenge in all your organizations, as it was in the ministry, in a social service ministry, in MSF. It's also a challenge. So one day, or rather, when the DAI results is out, right, and we're going to have another session like this, I want to share with you, right, what I did in MSF and how I did it. Okay, this is something I've been holding back, and I was thinking, when is a good time to share some of the secrets? Okay, so when all this is said and done, with all the DAI out of the way, and we get our results, we come together again, right? I'll say, give me some time. Let me show you or share a bit about my journey, okay, and how we did it, and how we tried to overcome some of the challenges that you are facing today. Okay, all right. So with that, I don't want to take up too much time. I only want to say, please take an hour of your time in the next 3 weeks, just 1 hour in the 3 weeks, okay, to just sit down and do this, or stand up and do this if some of you feel like, you really need to, like, cannot sit down anymore. Just take that 1 hour lah. It will be worth it for the long run, at least for the next 3 years. It will help all of us, help yourselves most, and then of course as a sector lah. So what we can do to help you, okay? All right, so with that, I'm going to say a very good afternoon because I was telling Tracy I have to run off for elections duty. Literally run out of the house after this, get into a Grab and go checking on polling stations. And so tomorrow is a big day. So for those of us who are able to vote, I would say let's vote wisely. Yeah, everybody? Okay, so I'll see you again. I look forward to your responses in the DAI. Thank you so much. All right, have a good day.
Thanks, Eileen. Thanks, Ping Ching and the team. Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
See you again.
Thank you, everybody.
See
Thank
you.
you.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.